Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Hannah Platts. I work for the Defence and Security Accelerator, and I am the DASA's Army partner. So what that means is I spend some of my time embedded within DASA as an organisation, but also I sit embedded within Army headquarters as part of their innovation, research and experimentation team. Before we get going, can I just have a quick show of hands as to how many people have heard of DASA or worked with DASA previously? Okay, that's a really good number. And in terms of what we've got going on in the room, how many people have got overlap with defence in some shape or form? Okay, fab. So for those of you who are not aware of what DASA does, our mission is to find and fund new and novel technology which is exploitable for both defence and security application. Okay, and within that, we're also focusing on UK prosperity. So we cover any technology from any supplier. It could be a startup, a small medium enterprise, all the way up to primes, as to do they think that they have something new and novel for defence or security. So within that, how does DASA work? We have a number of different teams within our organisation. So starting at the bottom where we are today, around that innovator community and the innovator's journey, we have a team of individuals who are regionally based called our outreach team. And that's a collection of people who are there to support innovators in terms of their access to DASA. So they will reach out, they'll look for those new and novel innovations that are within different regional areas and look to pull them through into the Defence and Security Accelerators competition process. So that's in the middle of the page. So we sit as that intermediary between industry and supplier base and government customers. So within the organisation, the team that I sit in is very much focused on that partnership with defence and security in terms of our government stakeholders. So that can be both on sort of Ministry of Defence side, so Army, Navy, Air, DE&S or Strategic Command, and it's also across our security departments, so transport, for example, and other government organisations. So how do we fund innovation? DASA has a number of competitions and funding mechanisms that they run, which you'll see on the screen in front of you. The sort of main core of the DASA services is focused around our open call for innovation. That's where suppliers can push any idea into DASA for consideration, both on security and defence circumstances, and that's contract funding. We also run something called our themed competitions, and that is where an end user or a customer can come to DASA and say, I have a really gritty challenge that I want to focus on. So for example, within Army, we've currently had one open looking at contemporary deception and how the Army are looking at different deception technologies. So DASA will then help that end user and that customer build that competition to put out to industry through our gov.uk webpage to try and encourage innovations in areas that are meaningful for us. On the other side, we've also got our Defence Technology Exploitation Programme, which is grant funded. We've got our Defence Innovation Loans, which is all around commercialisation and scaling for businesses. And we've got Defence and Security Seed Fund. And the reason I gloss over those slightly is because I'm on the customer side. So as defence customers, we'll often put a lot of input into the open call and the theme competition and less so onto the other areas. So what does DASA do with regards to Army-specific crossovers? So what I really focus on with Army is what are Army's priorities? So what are they looking for? What do they need? What are their future concepts? How are we looking out to 2035 and understanding what that future force is going to require in order to take them forward? And that's based upon Army's Wavell project and the land operating concept. I also focus on how to encourage Army to spend money with DASA. So we have a number of industry proposals that are put into our competitive services, and I will be looking to align some of the Army money with that to ensure that we are funding things that meet Army-specific requirements. Within Army headquarters, we also have a crossover with Army specialists and expertise in terms of assessing those proposals that are coming in from industry. So that really, again, helps us align industry and supplier proposals with an end user requirement. We also focus on exploitation opportunities. So, as I said, I work within Army. That's specifically within Army Futures, which I'll come on to in a second. And we're looking out across Army writ large for opportunities for industry to further that technology if it's meaningful to that end customer community. And usually that's through our Army warfighting experiment, it's through our human-machine teaming experiments, to sort of look at prototyping and testing things that are coming through industry which we think will be useful for our future force. Across that, we also look at raising awareness. So within defence, there's the defence innovation ecosystem. I won't go through all of that, but we look at multiple touch points to make sure that the suppliers who are working with us have the best journey through that innovation portfolio. As I mentioned, one of the key competitions that we've had open recently, which was directly funded from Army Innovation, was on contemporary deception. And that's just an example of where we build that challenge, we put money behind it, and then we put that out to industry to submit. I'll just leave that on there. So that's a really quick whistle-stop tour because we don't have much time today on DASA. If you have any questions, come and find me at the networking event over lunch, or if you want to go to our gov.uk pages, there is a lot of information about all the different services, how DASA operates, and how to best get in touch with us. So that's the bit from me. Unfortunately, today we were meant to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Dorr from the Infantry Trials and Development Unit, and he was detained on other business. So I'm going to do a really, really quick overview on Army Futures, and the Experimentation and Trials Group. So as I mentioned, I work for DASA, but I also sit within Army headquarters, and that's as part of the Army Futures Directorate. So that directorate was set up under the new Army operating model, and we're here. Bottom left. So it's a busy slide, I get that. So you've got MoD main building at the top of the slide, that's in Whitehall. You've got Army's process and how we feed into that whole cycle around decision making, Army programs and equipment capability along the bottom. So Futures is down here on the left, and we really focus on concepts, research and experimentation, and innovation. Okay, so that's future concepts of how do we operate, how do we modernize, how do we become more agile and adaptive, how can we make sure that we have sustained supply chains, how do we look at future force design to meet the future needs that we're going to face. Concepts then passes through our Strat Centre to our programs, and then we're looking on the right-hand side of that page out to in-service capability. So that's looking at what do the field army need in the sort of now, in today's and now. So we feed that process. So as part of that, and as part of sort of Army laydown, we have the Experimentation and Trials Group. So that came out of the Future Soldier concept, and that's based within our Land Warfare Centre. What that means is that's our sort of conduit and our socket for experimentation between what we do in the conceptual space and the innovation space out to something meaningful within Field Army. So at the moment, you've got the headquarters are in Warminster, and you're going to have a reformatted Army Trials unit, which is going to consider all of the different areas that we might be interested in. So is that joint fires or deep recce strike or manoeuvre support, etc. Go on to this. Again, it's really busy. What you need to take away from this is that the ETG, the Experimentation and Trials Group, are where we can go to look at doing trials. Okay, we can do trials, we can do experimentation, we can look at informing process and policy, and we can look at doing some development. So they are there with, I suppose, ring-fenced resource in order to help support that process, to get us from innovation and experimentation out towards what capabilities do we need in the future. So in terms of the focus areas that ETG are looking at, you can see on the screen, I suppose I would definitely highlight some of the uncrewed lethality and mobility and perhaps some of the deception technologies, but it kind of gives you a breadth of the topic areas that we're looking at, which is across many domains, but with a land-specific focus. And I think that's that from me. So that's a quick run through of DASA, what DASA does, Army Futures and where we sit within the whole model, and the Experimentation and Trials Group and what they're focusing on for the current. And I'll pass you over to Patrick.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the dubious honor of being the last formal speaker of the afternoon. So for a couple of reasons, that and a few other reasons, I'll go through the slides somewhat quickly. First of all, Pam, thank you so much for having me. As some of you probably know, this is my 4th or 5th time formally engaging with STC over the last 2 years, and it's always a great day out. I really appreciate being invited, and I really appreciate being welcome. Following Hannah, the absolute best that I could do is be a pale imitation, because we are really kind of the US left hand to the right hand of UK DASA. But I will go through this, and I want to save enough time at the end to give you kind of a candid look behind the curtain. I have the benefit of having done this job for about 3 years now, so try to give you a little bit of the inside baseball of how what we do actually works. So Patrick Fowler, I'm from U.S. Army Futures Command International. That is Army Futures Command headquartered in Austin, Texas. There's approximately 30,000 scientists and engineers in the United States who handle Army modernization on the research and development side. They are separated into commodity areas that are just about anything you could possibly imagine, anything that a soldier touches. Representing those 30,000 scientists and engineers, there are 30 of us, a little bit less, here in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Our job, we have several jobs, as you can see from this slide. Without reading the slide off to you, the most salient point is that we are tech scouts. My job is to be out here in the UK and more broadly Europe and the Middle East and Africa to identify, I always say, where's Tony Stark in his basement with a box of scraps doing something we otherwise would have no idea was going on. With all candor, my job is not to be here and have close ties to BAE. BAE doesn't need help penetrating the US market. My job's here to find those people that we don't otherwise know about. Really, my job is then to help tell your story back into the United States with those 30,000 scientists and engineers. I am not the arbiter of whether or not your capability is of value. My job is to partner with you to tell those scientists and engineers what you're working on and why it's special. The last thing I want to highlight on here is thank you, Hannah, for sharing the day with me, and then Arthur by extension. So part of my job here is obviously promoting innovation, right? We want the US warfighter to have the absolute best capability that they can possibly have, which means that we can't be the best in the world if we're not engaged in the world. So that's one big reason. The other one is interoperability. We're here with, I think it's no secret that the UK is our closest ally. People like Hannah, people like Lieutenant Colonel Daw are very, very important to what we do. I first met Hannah just a few weeks after I came to the UK. DASA showing off a capability they had invested in, which then led to several years of us investing in that same capability. And it's safe to say that that company is scaling pretty well within defense. We did that through partnership, not through competition by any means. And then Lieutenant Colonel Daw's Army warfighting experiment, which Hannah talked about, is something that we go to every year where we get to see capability in action. And I would like to come back to that later, both here in the UK and then events like that that are happening in the US. So here for fostering innovation, fostering trust with our international allies, and fostering that partnership. I'll whiz through this really fast, but we are one of 3 international offices. So I cover the Atlantic, headquartered in London, but we have offices in Frankfurt, Tel Aviv, Paris. We have some people in Vicenza, Italy, and then a few other people kind of smattered about. So that's the 30 of us. We cover a pretty broad geographic area. We also have Army Futures Command Forward Element Pacific and Americas, which is obviously in our own backyard. All have similar mission sets. The only thing I haven't covered right now is that we also have people who are embedded with our U.S. combatant commands. So for example, the representative in Italy is actually there talking to U.S. soldiers in the field, trying to figure out what they need. So kind of the opposite side of what I'm doing. I'm here to figure out what you can give me. She and her colleagues are there to figure out what we need. Zipping through this is our org chart. I won't bore you with that. Our overall engagement strategy, I mean, you're looking at it, right? We engage in a myriad of different ways throughout the year. We're at most of the big trade shows. We're here to engage with you and figure out what those capabilities are and to help tell that story. But then how do we partner? This is probably the real so what slide. The S&T investments, actually, I'm sorry, this is the real so what slide. So the tools in our toolbox are for international collaboration. Every year we have between $1 and $2, maybe $2.5 million to invest throughout that entire AOR. So that's Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. I used to have a slide that showed how much of that goes into the UK. I'll be candid, it's the lion's share, shall we say. You guys definitely get more than your fair share because of the excellent technology that's here and the excellent work that's being done here. So going back to kind of the how it's done, that money is not meant to develop a capability all the way to market and all the way build something. I'm not your last stop, I think is what I'm trying to say. My goal with that money is to make you look as good as you can to my US colleagues, to really show off your R&D, to put that best foot forward, so that then my colleagues are picking you up. So you meet me on day one, 18, 24 months down the line, 1, 2, maybe 3 funding rounds later of modest funding. Now I'm handing you off to people back in the United States who are maintaining the relationship with you and moving that forward. So really, I'm a matchmaker. I'm doing my best to get you talking to the right people. So that means that we can fund research and development efforts. That means that we can purchase equipment from you and put that into the hands of our scientists and engineers for evaluation. That means we can pay for travel, either to bring them out here to meet you or vice versa, take you back to the States. We have a smattering of events which we can talk about more offline, but there's plenty of exercises like Army Warfighting Experiment. There's a sister exercise, Army Expeditionary Warfighting Experiment, which the US hosts. And it's no coincidence that the acronyms are nearly identical and that they're held 6 months out of phase with one another. Lieutenant Colonel Daw comes to the United States and participates in AEWE. We come to Salisbury and participate in AWE. So opportunities like that exist. Getting you in front of those venues that's how we're going to collaborate. We're going to put you in those environments to shine. While I have a couple of minutes, hopefully, I think that's what so the last thing maybe I'll just mention that's kind of the briefing chart is one of the things we have the X-Tech International Competition. This is a formal competition that's held every year. There are topic areas that you respond to. So typically the submissions are due in spring, and then the competition, it happens in summer, late summer. This is like Dragon's Den. You get in front of a panel of DoD judges, they evaluate your technology. The winner gets a check. It's not a contract. Obviously the hope is that that leads to a contract, but you get prize money. And then I think the top 3 finalists split bigger prize money, and I think the top 10 all get $10,000 to kind of cover travel expenses. So this is one of the big ways that you can partner with us. I think it's also a good example of, okay, so you enter X-Tech, you go through a couple of rounds, you end up being one of the top 10, you get $10,000, you end up winning and you get $50,000. Is that going to make or break your company? Probably not. But the unique value proposition that I'm bringing to you is that at this event, you're meeting a panel of DoD judges who all come from that ecosystem I just described. They are not me sitting in London. They are in various labs and centers throughout the United States. So the hope there is that the $50,000 rewards you for your trouble. It's enough of an incentive to bring you to the table. But really what I want to do is that day at the networking drinks at dinner, you're talking to those judges and then you're building a future collaboration with them. So that's a good example of kind of how we do what we do, or how we try to do what we do. The last thing that I'll bring up in terms of the inside baseball is kind of the lessons learned over 3 years of doing this. The things that we tend to see be successful is I'll be frank, we are not good at, hey, tell us what your problem is and we'll solve it for you. That tends to be something that we can't engage with. I've personally tried to push several of those across the finish line, and it's always difficult. We're much better at looking at a technology and saying, man, we want to be a part of that, we want to engage in that, which means you say, I've cracked the code on XYZ thing, and then we say, all right, we agree with that, technically we would like to jump in. The second thing, this leads me to the harshest part of my briefing, but hang with me for a second. Because I'm on the international stage, the tough thing for me is that I'm genuinely looking for the best in the world. So I'm looking for that unique value proposition that really sets you heads and shoulders above your competition. That might sound like a harsh bar. The good news, though, is that by engaging with UK industry and European industry for the last 3 years, I know that you've put your heart and souls into your companies for a reason. You've made sacrifices. You've done what you've done to be here because you believe in what you're doing. That's the story that I need to know, and that's the story that I need to help tell. So it's a high bar, but it's one I think everyone in this room can pass, and probably everyone in STC can pass. You are doing incredible things. We just need to know what that thing is that's best of anyone. I'll make a little bit of gentle fun of the Irish that we went to Northern Ireland and I briefed that, and they said, man, that's not in our blood to tell you that we're the best at anything. And then a guy kind of came up to me over coffee and he was like, but we're actually really, really good at this thing. I was like, that's what I need you to tell me. So those are kind of some of the inside baseball of how do we get to yes with this. And then what does success look like? Success looks like a long-term collaboration. You know, this is not something where there's going to be a massive contract at the end of 6 months, even a year, even 18 months. We do need to take baby steps together because this international market is difficult to navigate, especially in the defense industry, especially in the defense industry in 2024. So that's kind of the lessons learned that hopefully will help you engage with us. One of the biggest things I'll recommend, I'm sorry it's not on the slide, but if you have a pen and paper, if you want to find me later, a huge thing that you can do if you want to engage in the U.S. defense market is be engaged in sam.gov. That is sam.gov. Exercises that I mentioned, I'd be up here all day if I was naming all the exercises that have opportunities for technology to participate. Those are advertised on sam.gov. Broad agency announcements that are contracting opportunities, those are advertised on sam.gov. So having a login and having a registration for that website is a real hack for working in this community. And then, obviously, please come find me and get my contact information so that I can help as best I can. Once we do have that U.S. partner who's interested in you, the sky's the limit in what we're able to do together. So, any questions, or just jump right into it, you think? Jump right in, sounds good. Yeah, thank you. So, without further ado, one of the big things over the last 3 years is that I personally have seen, and I think Hannah has seen, the struggles that SMEs face coming into this industry. So the debate question, Hannah, would you like to introduce it as it was your topic?
I don't mind.
Oh, fair enough. Well,
you go for it.
what are the barriers to engaging with the defense industry? What are the things that you see that make it tough to work with us? Is that fairly
absolutely.
simple?
And I think, we already note that there are large organisations, they're quite bureaucratic. Sometimes we can come across as being quite slow, and it's frustrating. So, we do recognise that, but go for it, be harsh.
Yeah.
We would like to hear it, but we'd like to hear it also with a sort of, collaborative manner. So, there are a lot of barriers, but how do you think that we can help overcome them together? Noting that we're all part of that innovation ecosystem and that we're not necessarily offering, a long-term contract off the back of any engagement with us, but we are desperate to help support small, medium enterprises, help build business growth, and help see new and novel tech that we need for defence and security come into the market.
Very well said.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Cool, excellent. Thank you very much. Hope that's been a good discussion. I will pick on two people to quickly recap. Tricia, could you summarize your discussion, please?
Yeah, so lots of points generated from the table. Oh, sorry, I thought I was shouting loud enough, but
Yeah. No, please do keep shouting. That's just for the video.
So quite a few points raised, but some of the key ones were transparency of requirements, and appreciative that the MoD have said that they can't share and ask to problem solve. But lots of people in the room are innovators who are there as problem solvers, so they don't know how to solve or fix a problem if they don't know what the problem is. So there was a desire to see more transparency to then help collaboratively. Perhaps more engagement through STC, so to invite a party to go down and see and have a look around as an opportunity, and also examples of case studies, I think, to take the main key points from the table. Yeah. So would help, sharing case studies and examples.
Perfect. That's because that's exactly the sort of thing that I'm talking to them about doing. So that'll be fantastic. Mark, would you recap the conversation from your table, please?
Not sure you've picked the right table here, Pim. But anyway, we're all service providers on this table. All right, so our technical nous is not that great, yeah. But I think for us, it was the barriers really centered around just raising the awareness, because we may well have clients who are interested in providing services or solutions, you know, to the MoD, US DEVCOM, etc., but just don't know what the opportunities are out there. So that was one key thing for us. And then I think secondly, from perhaps a professional services perspective, it's whether, you know, the risk appetite to take on work supplying MoD, UK DEVCOM. Is that something people want to engage with?
I agree. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That'll be really good.